Hey, how's it going? Dave from Comic Book Investments. So today we're going to go over another top 10. And this will be the top 10 comics that I would invest in under $10,000. Now, it doesn't have to be each book combined, all 10 of these equal 10,000. These are each individual book. And I'll explain why I picked each book. So let's go into number 10. Amazing Spider-Man 300. No guess here because Venom was on the thumbnail. And this is a picture of a 9.8, and about a 9.8 is going to run you about $7,400. If this was 2016, 5 years ago, be 1,000. 10 years ago, be 550. Now, if you look down here at the return, you're looking at a 5-year return rate of 640, 10-year return rate of over 1,200%. Now, down here at the bottom, if you don't know, I have the 10-year return of the Dow Jones and SP 500. And the Dow Jones 10-year return is 163%, SP 500, 197%. And I also have Amazon, which is, if you all know, a very good stock in the last 10 years. That hit 1,600%. And also have Apple, which is another great company, at 855. The reason why I put these down here is so you can see that comic books are just as good as investing as these top tier companies. So I have it here as a 9.8, but I would suggest if you had the money to spend, get anywhere between a 9.4 and a 9.8 in this particular book. That's a better collectible grade. All right, moving on to number 9. Number 9. Avengers #1. Now, in this range, a 6.0 will get you about $6,500, but then a 6.0 5 years ago, $3,500. 10 years ago, a little slightly under $3,000. Now, I'd suggest if you had the money, I would suggest get anywhere between a 4.0 to a 6.0. 5-year return is 86%. A 10-year return is 124%. Now, if you look down here, it's not even as good as the Dow, not as good as S&P 500, not even near as good as Amazon or Apple. And you're wondering, well, why would I put it in there? There's tons of other books. Yes, there's other books that you could get that are just, you could probably get for $100, and then 5-10 years from now, maybe it's $1,000. Way better return than this book. But this is a book that it won't dip as much as another book will. Like, it's the same as in the stock market. You could get a stock that's super risky, that has a good potential return, or you could go for a more like blue chip, so they say, stock, which is a good company. And that's why I see the Avengers. Think of it as like a good, solid company. You might not make the best, fanciest returns, but they're going to make more Avengers movies, which will continue to go up in value. Avengers movies are huge, so it's going to stay a long time. I don't think this is a very risky play, but I also don't think it is going to be like one of those books you get for next to nothing and it skyrockets, right? But this is what I would tell an investor to get. This is think of it like safe investing. You want to hold your money, you want it to go up in value. Next, we have number 8, New Mutants 98. I suggest to get this anywhere from a 9.4 to a 9.8. Reason why, you can get a 9.0, 9.2, stuff like that, but the lower you get, the less desirable it is for collectors, especially in this price range. Obviously, if this book is like $100,000 in a 9.8, then yes, those 8.0s become more collectible. This will run you about $3,000. 5 years ago, $800. 10 years ago, slightly under $250. 5-year return is 275%. 10-year return, 1,200%. And again, this book alone can beat Apple, doesn't beat Amazon. But the reason I put Amazon, Apple, they're like one of the top tier. So there's a lot of stocks out there, even ones I've owned, where it's just like 5 years later, it's like, oh, gone up 30%. And that's good. Most people consider 8 to 10% return a year good. That's what the S&P 500 has done for the last 100 years almost, is got around 8 to 10% return average. And that's what people expect. But these comics, much, much more. Number 7, we got Amazing Spider-Man #1. Now, as you see, there's not going up in value. You got ones that are expensive, one is a little cheaper, stuff like that. You can get about a 3.5 for about $10,000. 2016, you're looking slightly under 4,000. 10 years ago in 2011, you're looking slightly under 2,500. I suggest to get this between 2.0 and a 3.5. The reason why not lower is the lower you go, like in a 1.5, 1.0, you're going to have big chunks missing, complete spine splits, all that stuff. That's the kind of stuff you want to avoid. It's not as desirable, harder to move. Collectors don't want it as much. 5-year return, you're looking at about 150%. 10-year return, you're looking at 335%. Again, obviously it doesn't beat Apple or Amazon, but it beats the S&P 500 and, obviously beats the Dow Jones. All right, moving on to number 6. Fantastic Four #1. Now, why is this higher than Spider-Man 1? Well, they're going to make a Fantastic Four movie in the MCU, which should just make this book even go higher. And I think the MCU will be able to get the Fantastic Four right and continue to make more and more of them. I suggest a 2.0, just kind of like before. Don't like going down below 2.0. This will cost you about 10 grand. 5 years ago, it's 3,200. 10 years ago, 2,200. It's funny, from 2011 to 2016, not too much of a jump. 5-year return, over 200%. 10-year return, 350%. Again, most people want about 10% return, and the S&P 500 gets you under 200% in the last 10 years, which has been really, really good. Most people just expect 10% a year. Moving on to number 5. Spider-Man 129. This is the first appearance of the Punisher. And I would suggest to get anywhere from 8.0 to a 9.6. The reason why I'm going all the way down to 8.0 as compared to like a 9.0 is because I think this book has the legs that an 8.0 is still very desirable. I'm not saying that a 7.5 is not desirable and that you should just get rid of it and never collect it. I'm just saying in that range, I feel like that is going to be your best bang for your buck. It sells for about 6,600 in a 9.4. 5 years ago, 2,200. 10 years ago, 1,000. You're looking at a 5% return is around 200%. And a 10-year return, you're looking at 560%. That's pretty good, yeah. So moving on, number 4. X-Men #1. Why is this much higher than a Fantastic Four and all that other stuff? X-Men are, next to Spider-Man, probably the hottest property that Marvel owns. And they're coming out with an X-Men movie franchise with the MCU, and they're going to have millions of spin-offs, I'm sure. Wolverine spin-off, who knows how many spin-offs they'll have. And it's just going to go, X-Men 1 is just going to keep on climbing and climbing and climbing. You can even compare it to, you can get a 2.0 of this, and you can get a 2.5 and a 3.5 of Spider-Man. So this is going to run you about $9,800. In 2016, it was about $1,500. In 2011, it was $800. Man, that's crazy. 5-year return, you're looking about 550%, and a 10-year return, you're looking about 1,100%. A 2.0 is all you can get. I would suggest just getting a 2.0. Yeah, you could. I'm not saying no, don't get a 1.0 if you only have $5,000 to spend. It's still a good idea. This is my suggestion, is to get a 2.0. If all you can afford is a 1.0 or a 1.5, just make sure that it presents well, which means there's no big chunks missing. Like a lot of times you'll see all of Iceman just ripped off or something like that, or the label ripped off or something like that. Just get something that looks nice, not all stained up. Could have some spine splits, but they're hidden well. It's not completely split. Just make sure it's if you look at this 2.0, it's look, it's completely there. The whole cover, it might be banged up and have creases and tears and all that stuff, but it presents well. That's kind of what you should look for. So this book right here has beat Apple, didn't beat Amazon. And yeah, so let's move on to number 3. Turtles #1, first print. Now, A 6.5 is going to run you about 10 grand. 5 years ago, it's running about 3,200. 10 years ago, 1,200. I wish I would have picked some up. You're looking at 5% return of 200% and a 10-year return of 733, which I think will continue to go up even more and more. You want anywhere from 4.0 to 6.5, just so it presents well. But again, if you could get 2.0, get a 2.0. These are really hard to come by. There's not that many that are printed. So, yeah. Moving on to number 2. X-Men, giant size X-Men number 1. You want anywhere between a 6.0 to 8.5. I put it, even though you could get an 8.5 for under 10 grand, I put an 8.0 price because I feel that the 8.0 and the 8.5 price is going to get you about the same, not the same dollar amount, but in sense of like return value on your investment. So it's going to run you about 8 grand to get an 8.0. 5 years ago is, man, 5 years ago is $875. 10 years ago is 500. Wow, look at that. In 5 years, 10x. So you're looking at a 5-year return of 840% and then a 10-year return of 1,500%. So it doesn't do it quite as well as Amazon. Obviously it beats Apple, but Amazon is did ginormous. No one saw Amazon coming. That just bulldozed everything. That's why I put this in here, just so people can see that these are as good as stocks. And I put down some of like the best blue chip stocks down there. Like I could have put like something like Facebook or Google, and they probably were definitely less than Amazon. And I could have put, other stocks, if I would have put like GE, General Electric, went down, I think, in the last 10 years. Or I could have put like Ford, and I think that dropped down. I think it just recently it's gone up. I don't know off the top of my head, but had a period of time where it was down and dipping down. So a lot of people will invest in stocks, and they'll get like in a 10-year period, maybe like 30 or 40%. Like I said, the average for the S&P 500 is 8 to 10% a year. Some years it's like 30%, some years it's 5%, some years it's negative 10%. We've had a really good run for the last 10 years. That's why it's up to almost 200%, but that's kind of not normal. But same with comics. This is not normal time either. So this is kind of, what I'm trying to portray is, look, comics are a good investment as well. And that's another reason why they've been going up lately. A lot of people have been seeing that and pouring money into it. They could put money into Apple, or you could buy a giant size X-Men number 1. So before I get to number 1, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. I think 80% of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed. If you are subscribed, thanks. Feel free to leave a comment below on ones that you think should be on this list, and maybe ones that you think are better. This is just what I would tell people that want to invest what to get. There's other books out there, like you could say, like, what about, Special Marvel Edition 15, which is, first appearance of Shang-Chi. Yeah, that book has been going up like crazy, and it will go up. But in the long term, like these are all long-term investments, I don't feel it's too risky, because what if the movie sucks? And then Marvel's like, let's just get rid of him. The guy's in no more movies, no more TV shows, all that kind of stuff. That book will go way down, because comics are all about supply and demand. And so when the demand is there and you have a short supply, because you can't make any of these books ever again. They were made back, 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, and you can't make them anymore. And so that means the demand's high, people are trying to buy them. But if the demand is high because of a movie, and a movie then flops, and then they don't make any more, the demand dips. So it's too risky. That's why I put Deadpool on here, is because he's already proven himself. Not only is he great in the comics, but he's already done 2 movies that made like $1 billion, and then he's on his 3rd movie. So even if the 3rd movie sucks and they don't make any more, eventually they'll revamp him in the movies again and bring up all that hype again. Also, Deadpool's really good at like being on merchandise and things like that. So he's here to stay. That's why I put someone like him. That's like all these books are here to stay. You got Spider-Man, he's not going anywhere. You got Fantastic Four, he's not going anywhere. And then maybe you're like, well, what about the Hulk? I thought about putting the Hulk on there. He's my favorite character, and trust me, it broke my heart not to put him on here. But he's never really had he had his standalone movies, and they always kind of flopped. And I still think he's great. Like, if you want to get the Hulk, get the Hulk. But I'm just saying these are what I would tell investors. And normally I would start with, this is the first book you get. This is the second book, which would be the giant size. Third book, and work your way down the list. So if I'm telling an investor, like I told my brother who wanted to invest in comics, he just got a bunch of basically the top 3 that I'm showing on this list, and he's got multiple copies of them. So he never made it down to Avengers #1 and Spider-Man 1 and things like that. So moving on to #1, I wonder if you can guess what it is. I'll pause here, think about it. It is not a Fantasy 15. That would be #1, but it was too expensive. So here we go. #1. We got the Hulk 181, first appearance of Wolverine. This is the same as book before, between, pretty much if you can get one that's not, I would say at least a 4.0, at least. Preferably around a 6.0. Because that's when they start looking nice and presentable. Because a lot of collectors like to put this and hang it on their wall, so they don't want something like that's literally missing pieces, all stained up and things like that. If you can, here's a pro tip: get one that may be a 6.0, but the front looks like a 9.0, but the back has some massive flaw, because when people hang them on the wall, it looks way nicer, and people like that. The front cover always matters more than the back cover. All right, so you're looking in. Now you can pick up an 8.0 around $9,600. 5 years ago, $2,000. 10 years ago, $750. Man, I bet a lot of you out there are probably like, wow, I'd kill to have a Hulk 181 for $750 at an 8.0. All right, 5% return, you're looking at slightly under 400%. A 10-year return, 1,180%. Now, once again, there has been other books on here that have a higher return rate on this same list. But, like I was saying, certain books I think will be proved better in the long run. And this is a book, it's first appearance of Wolverine. People love Wolverine. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, of all the characters, like, he appeared in a group, right? The X-Men, that's where he's most known for. But yeah, he's had multiple of his own movies that do really, really well. That's most part in Hugh Jackman. But then he's also the main purpose of, the X-Men franchise. So yeah, let me know what you think about this list. Comment below things that you wish are on this list. Maybe other lists you want me to do. But again, this is my top 10. If someone came to me and says I had $10,000 to spend, this is what I'd tell them right here, this list. And I'd start with #1, obviously Hulk 181, and then I'd work my way down. All right, have a good day. Thanks.